Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Well, based on the rest of this week, I could tell you how I'm doing, but it's just going to change in 5 minutes, so I'm not sure there's much point.
Yeah, and from now on, we're just going to do 5-minute podcasts that then get uploaded within the next 10 minutes. That way, we've got a 70 to 75% chance of having what we say be timely and not completely hours old. So, Tom, thank you all for listening. This is a great show. We've got to hurry up and upload this one, but we'll be right back with you in like 20 minutes. How's that sound?
Leave us a rating and review. Be sure to mention how we don't waste your time.
So, yeah, wasting time, Tom. Um, we know now
This
that
transition could be going anywhere.
so you're listening to a podcast. Now, there is no fall ball now. We have finally gotten that repeatedly from Gene Smith. No, Ohio State cannot go anywhere and do whatever they want. And Ryan Day had suggested that they were going to explore the possibilities when we talked to him on Tuesday when this all came down, right? Is that when we talked to him? Or was that Wednesday? I don't even know.
Wednesday. This has been the longest week in human history. So it was at some point in the last 17 years, which spans the time between Monday and today. Yes.
I think when, knowing that we were going to do this, I could have gotten a timeline out and been exact on this, but time is fluid, as we all know. But so from the time that the Big Ten's like, nah, no football, and then there was a point where Ryan Day is like, well, we're going to explore every option. I believe he maybe said on ESPN or something, and Gene Smith said afterwards, no. And then we talked to Ryan Day Wednesday morning or Wednesday at noon, and he's like, I talked to Gene this morning. We're going to explore our options. And then like 6 hours later, Gene Smith releases a statement like, no, we're not. We talked about it. We're not doing it. So, Tom, when like Bart and Homer are chasing the barbecue pig that,
It's
ends
still
up
good. It's still good.
exactly. Forget it's gone. The fall season is now gone. It is shooting over, the bridge. It is going away down the river. It's kaput. And so now we get to transition to the idea of spring football, but calling it spring football would be inaccurate since most of it would take place in the winter. And really, when you call it spring football, it's almost a non-starter with people because there's there's already questions about how much time there is to get this stuff done. But when you call something spring ball, you can't have a spring ball and then also start your next season in the summer. There's just the timing doesn't work. So you have to start it in the winter. Ryan Day has mentioned some plans, hasn't laid anything out in terms of a worksheet and color coding, which is what Jeff Brohm has done at Purdue. And so now you've got two Big Ten coaches who have laid out some plans. So I thought, you know what? Let's go over these plans, see some of the positives and some of the negatives. And we'll start with Jeff Brom's plan, which for me, there's some issues. He's had some time on his hands, and he laid out like 2 years, like not 2 years, but the spring football and how the fall season would start. My problem with his though, Tom, is that it impacts and dramatically changes both seasons. And I think if we want this winter idea to work, it might work best if it touches and has no impact on the fall season. And that's especially true if only the Big Ten and the Pac 12 are not playing, because if you're proposing having a fall season that is altered from everybody else, the other conferences, I think for me, that's a non starter.
And I'm sure that they probably realize that as well. Before this would be going into place, they would definitely know that either the SEC, ACC, and Big 12 are or are not playing a fall 2020 season, and therefore would or would not be playing a spring 2021 season. So, I mean, you can sort of adjust based on that. Both Ryan Day and Jeff Brom seem to have at least tried to address the issues with, having enough time between the two seasons, because it's not great to play. It would not be a good idea to play 2 full college football seasons in 1 calendar year. So there's not a super great, clean solution here that's going to solve everything, because you have to space things out a little bit between the seasons. Ryan Day is talking about doing that by just starting earlier. Jeff Brohm is talking about doing that by pushing that fall season back about a month. But you're trying to balance that. You're trying to start the spring season early enough that you can, play a full fall season, or basically a full fall season. But also, the longer you wait, the more likely it is that, something has the old college football plan. Something will come and save us. It'll be fine. And whether that's a vaccine or cheaper, more accurate, faster testing, there's been a lot of, I'm sure something will resolve itself and it'll be fine, that has been going into a lot of these plans. And, you give yourself a better chance of someone else solving your problem for you if you wait a little longer. But then you have to balance that with, hey, we also have to finish early enough that we can actually play a full fall season. So they're going to have to kind of thread the needle pretty carefully on this.
The whole waiting for something to resolve itself was pretty much, I believe, the Big Ten's whole plan, seemingly knowing they were never going to play this year, but willing to let the players go out there and practice, because eventually the NCAA would just shut everything down and they wouldn't have to worry about doing it themselves. And so they could kind of go in without a plan, but then a plan had to be enacted, and they acted quickly and were like, no football. With Jeff Brohm's plan, I like that. He's even thought about, like, you've got to limit the contact, and he's saying, no more than 2 padded practices during a season. So there is that he is factoring that in, all of the contact. I do like that he's throwing in just, hey, while we're at it, 16 playoff with the 5 conference champs and a wild card team in there, with the top 2 teams getting a bye. And then he also throws that in for his fall suggestion as well, which, hey, I'm definitely not opposed to a 16 playoff with a bye there for the top 2 teams. I think we're going to eventually obviously get either to 6 team or an 8 team here pretty quickly. And while we're just making stuff up, hey, here's a new playoff for you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, absolutely. And Purdue definitely seems like the kind of team that's going to be directly impacted by that playoff. So I can see why he would have a lot of interest in that. Sure.
Wild card.
Now, absolutely. And
I think the wild card, it's just like a lottery pick. It's like, it's open to anybody. It's just drawn out of a hat.
The New York Rangers just won the lottery and they're in the college football playoff. That's weird. Yeah, it's something that is maybe more likely than it might have seemed otherwise, because this is with a shorter season. You would be you're less certain of who the best teams are with a shorter season. You just have a smaller sample, just sort of extend the thought here. If it's a 4-game season, how confident are you that you know who the best team is? Probably not very. So going from a 12 to a 10, you're probably a little less certain, especially if there are not a lot of cross-conference data points. So you would want a larger playoff just from that perspective. Here's the other perspective. They're going to want to give their TV partners whatever they can to make their TV partners happy, and maybe get a few extra nickels out of their TV partners this year. And 2 extra college football playoff games, that would make people real happy. I mean, I saw something earlier this week with numbers on, the millions of dollars of ads they can sell on certain games. The Ohio State Michigan game, millions and millions of dollars of ads. So a college football playoff game probably making even more than that. So that's money that could end up getting kicked back to the schools, who are going to be looking for every last nickel and dime they can get this year.
You mentioned the New York Rangers making the playoffs. Would you really be surprised if the Rangers made the playoffs before Rutgers?
I mean, I think there is a way that the New York Rangers could make the playoffs conceivably in the next 50 years. I mean, the ice caps melt. Ice isn't a thing in the U.S. anymore. So now they have to play on water, and then it's just a smooth transition to football from there. So yeah, I think that's more likely than Rutgers. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So Brahm, his spring plan is 8 games, ends in early May, starts I believe in late February. Then fall is 10 games, which I believe would have a little bit later start than normal, just because. And that's where, for me, I don't. I, I can see the fall season being pushed back a couple of weeks, but I also think that you can still have a full season, just even if you just push things back a couple of weeks, limiting the just impacting the 2021 season because of a later start than the for the spring 2020 and a half season. I don't even know what to call it. Um, I don't think you need to negatively impact it. I like Ryan Day's plan better of just starting earlier.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly some advantages to Ryan Day's plan. I mean, if no one is playing this fall, but they think they can get it started in January, then you do give yourself some more space before the fall. I mean, that's I think the biggest concern. Can you start it late enough that you feel comfortable starting it, that you've got protocols in place? Hey, Big Ten, you might want to start thinking about some specifics on how you're going to do stuff. You might want to start on that now rather than 48 hours before you're after maybe you released your schedule. That might be a good thing to start thinking about. But they have to balance that with not going late, not going so late. Now, there is an interesting element of this, which is the guy who is expecting to have a world-beating team this fall, Ryan Day, who called on our media call on Tuesday, called this a once-in-a-lifetime team. So guess what? He wants to have that once-in-a-lifetime team because he knows it might not come around again. So yeah, he's incentivized to start it earlier. Jeff Brohm, who, no disrespect to Purdue, but is probably not going to be quite as talented across the deck as Ohio State is this year, especially without Rondale Moore playing. Um, he's not quite as incentivized to start it as early as possible and space it out from the NFL draft as much as possible. So there's a little bit of that might go into those plans as well. But there's complications with Ryan Day's idea. If they really are starting to play games in January, you're talking about either, I mean, the Minnesota Golden Gophers probably have to play in whatever that Viking stadium is. Outdoors in Minneapolis in January is downright unpleasant, and probably in February and probably in March for part of it too. And you have to think about that with the Wisconsin Badgers. You got to think about that with, I mean, think about how cold Champaign, Illinois is going to be on the wind blowing 9,000 miles an hour with the 28-degree temperature. It's not going to be a great time to be playing outside. So then do you need to do kind of almost like a pod system where you're playing in the dome in Minneapolis and the dome in Indianapolis and the dome in, I don't know. I don't think St. Louis has knocked down their football stadium yet. Maybe you can play in the dome in St. Louis and the dome in Detroit, and you can make it work. And you play a couple games every weekend, and you just sort of figure it out that way. And are they going to be willing to have these guys really in pods like the NHL has and the NBA has? Probably not. But maybe you can transport your teams there every week, and Ohio State plays Minnesota at 12 o'clock in whatever the Viking Stadium is called now, and then at 8 o'clock that night, the Wisconsin Badgers play Iowa or whatever it is. And then there's 2 games going on in Detroit, and there's 2 games going on in Indianapolis, and you just kind of go from there. So I mean, it's a viable solution. There's a way to do it, but they have to be comfortable with the fact that they are moving people around, and they're going to have to accept the fact that there is some risk involved in playing football for the first time ever. And the other thing, and we can get into this a little bit later, but the other thing that's a concern is if you're playing football and you have testing protocols for your football athletes, you're going to have to, if the Big Ten is setting testing protocols for football, you're going to have those same protocols for basketball. And you're also going to have them for women's basketball. And you're also going to have them for rowing and soccer and anyone else who is, on campus and practicing and doing all this stuff. So then if you're testing football players 3 times a week, you probably need to be testing all of your rowers 3 times a week and your swimmers 3 times a week and all of that stuff. And that's going to add up pretty quickly and get to be a pretty expensive bill.
Well, the good news is without football this fall, all of those schools will be broke and canceled. So they won't have to worry about that. Like those sports, forget about it. So, Tom, your point is completely out of bounds because those things no longer exist now. Uh, I do think when people are like, well, what's going to change in the winter? I think testing gets better, gets quicker, gets cheaper every week. So there could be, as we're, giving it the old college try of let's just wait and see. Like I think that is one thing that could happen and is well, it will happen. Testing, we know, testing for everything gets better. You can, Tom, I don't know if you know this, you can pick up a pregnancy test at the dollar store. All right, so I can't vouch for the accuracy.
That's like the write the saddest 2-sentence story you can. I went to the dollar store. Period. I got a pregnancy test. That's pretty. That's some Cormac McCarthy stuff right there.
Where there's some throwing some like weird punctuation and you'd have it perfectly. Before we get to Ryan Day, I wanted to talk about Jim Harbaugh's plan, which I don't know if you've seen it. It's very regimented. Just came out. Starts Monday, August 17th, 6 a.m. Begin every day with an 8-ounce glass of milk and a 6-ounce steak. 6:05, a light jog.
You can't see me, but I'm furiously opening up Twitter to see if you're joking. I'm thinking maybe you're joking now, but I'm not 100% sure. But
and then, well, let me just continue, and maybe you'll see that I'm totally serious. 6:45 a.m. stare at wall. 9:45 workouts, and then 10:45 another 8-ounce glass of milk and a 6-ounce steak. Then 10:50.
I'm still not sure. Keep going.
12 p.m. lunch, which is an 8-ounce glass of milk and this time a 12-ounce steak. And then 12:10 stare at wall. 2:45 p.m. is a recitation of a thing Bo Schembechler said one time. And then at 3:15, it's another milk steak break with 8-ounce milk and 6-ounce steak. Then 3:20, something called chalk talk, which I might be football, might just be talking about chalk. I don't know. Could be either. 4:30 team meeting, 5:30 dinner, which is a 16-ounce glass of milk and a 32-ounce steak, and then 6 p.m. lights out. And then I don't know what page 2 is. I assume that this is just like an everyday thing. Then eventually football.
I hope there's some fiber on page 2 because that could be tough.
I think you use page 1 each day. You eat the page for the fiber. It's kind of like marking down a calendar.
I mean, listen, it's not the dumbest plan I've heard this week, so it has that going for it. It's going to be real interesting to see how this all goes because anytime I think like I have a sense for how this is all going to play out, there's something that comes up that is completely out of left field, and it's like there's no through thread on any of this. There's no consistency between decisions. There's no consistency between conferences. The ACC's chief medical officer is saying yes, it's safe to play, and the Big Ten and Pac-12 have already shut it down because their people say it's not safe to play, and Michigan State is shut down because it's not safe to play. But I saw something, and I have not verified this, so I cannot tell you it's 100% true, but there was a screenshot going around that Michigan State sent out an email to its student body that they can do intramural football this year, which, excuse me, what? And immediately my thought on that, I saw that right before we started hit record. Immediately my thought on that was, that's too stupid to possibly be true. But then I checked my watch, and it is still 2020, so sure, anything is within play at this point.
Well, there are so many people who just assume once all of the tuition checks clear, things will start to get shut down in terms of in-person. So, yeah. Oh, yeah, you can have your intramural sports guys. We're going to have those. Don't worry. And then when things get shut down in a week, you're like, well, no more intramurals because there are no in-person classes. Everything is virtual and online. But if you want to continue to do your flag football online, go ahead and figure out a way how to do that. But when Gene Smith was asked, how can you justify saying football is too dangerous, but then allow in-person classes? Like, how do you balance the two? How do you answer that? And he said football is contact sport. We mentioned that in the last show. It's like, but there's contact going on, and it doesn't need to be prolonged contact, or it doesn't need to be actual contact. It just needs to be like prolonged spaces. And the levels of um, you know, untruths, half truths in terms of what is acceptable, what is a liability, what isn't. Each day kind of brings its own hypocrisy, which is fun and annoying, and but more annoying than fun, certainly. And you wonder, like, how, as we all just wait for something to be fixed, the liability issues and all of that stuff will need to be addressed, or else, like, none of these plans matter.
Yeah, I mean, you have to kind of figure some of that stuff out, and I do wonder how much of the sort of I don't know if cognitive dissonance is the right term, but I mean, just sort of the inconsistency with which things are being done at this point. I do wonder how much of that is people. I mean, there are some financial elements to this where, yes, I'm sure Ohio State does really want to get all those tuition checks and all that room and board money before they make any kind of decision. And they are definitely incentivized to get all that money and give it a try. There's also the element of you don't want to, you don't necessarily want to give up too early on something if you think maybe you can get away with it somehow, contrary to what they did with football this week. But you want to be able to put forth we gave this our best shot. And since I know that just demographically speaking, our listeners are largely in Ohio, and people largely in Ohio are not Mets fans. So let me explain to you what We Tried means. We Tried is a tried and true Mets ownership move during the offseason where they will make an effort to court a potential free agent, knowing that they are cheap and stupid and will not actually pay said free agent. And this is which whoever is the top free agent on the market that year. And they make a big fancy deal of whining and dining this person and taking them around and touring the ballpark, and they take them out to dinner, and then it leaks to all the New York tabloids. Oh, Alex Rodriguez had the surf and turf at such and such club on the Upper West Side or whatever it is. And then they make an offer that's 40% below market, and he signs somewhere else, and they do the shrug emoji, and they go, "We tried." And then you get the good publicity of, "Oh, we tried, it just didn't work out, but we tried." And there's no real cost to that. So I think there's a little bit of "we tried" going on right now. There may have been some "we tried" going on with the Nebraska push for a fall football season, because I mean that they had to know how that was going to shake out, and that they were willing to bolt the conference for a fall football season this year. Like, yeah, that's probably not true. Ryan Day, I could believe Ryan Day absolutely wanted to play a fall football season this year, but it never seemed like did not seem like the most plausible likely explanation. Result of that whole thing was that they were going to somehow get to play half of the conference this fall. Would have been awesome. Would have been a lot of fun, but didn't definitely did not shake out that way. So I think I think there's a pretty good chance that the SEC and ACC and Big 12 are pretty deep in "we tried" territory right now, where they're going to get the hero points for not canceling. But ultimately, they also have attorneys, and they also have people who do not want to, have to deal with athletes organizing and all of that. So ultimately, I think you're going to get a "we tried" from them too.
Yeah, and medical personnel have different opinions all the time. Look at Jamel Dean, who was not medically cleared to play at Ohio State, played very well at Auburn, and I believe now is an NFL cornerback. Whereas you're going to be hard pressed to find lawyers who will tell you, "Oh no, yeah, you're fine. It'll be fine. It'll be okay." So that, I think that part will still need to be addressed, and how they do that, and while they are getting these schedules and these directions out quickly, like that's also going to have to be going on at the same time, or else all of this will just be, as you said, "We tried." I do wonder if too many coaches start throwing plans at the Big Ten. Is it going to be like having too many applications open on your computer, and things are just going to, like, shut down, and it's like, "Oh no, the Big Ten has crashed. We've got to restart the Big Ten. Give us like 10 minutes, and we'll get it back up." And sometimes other windows take longer to bring up, so just we'll just give us a couple of weeks. And as Ryan Day
I
said, it
definitely,
needs to be weeks, not months.
I definitely saw the pinwheel of death in front of Kevin Warren's face on BTN the other night. So that actually is a very good analogy. Yeah,
So,
it's I think that they're going to have to. It's great. Like everyone can go ahead and put their own plan out. Go ahead. Like everyone should throw their ideas and they should sit down and brainstorm. They should have done this 4 months ago, but they didn't. But okay, so do it now. Everyone put your plans together. Sit down, hash it out, figure out which one works best, and do it. And I mean, as I said earlier, like people are going to have different motives here. Ryan Day's motive is he wants to play a spring season, and also he wants to do it with Justin Fields and Sean Wade and Wyatt Davis and Josh Myers playing for him. And that is absolutely something that is in his best interest to do, and sure does change the look of the Big Ten race if those guys are all playing for Ohio State. And other coaches may not have that motive as much in mind. And some of this is maybe going to depend on, if and when the SEC, ACC, Big 12 do cancel for this fall. And, you're going to have to have some kind of a national agreement on this. That's something that I think they probably are going to have to get sorted out is you guys, just grab the 5 league commissioners, knock their heads together like coconuts and say, look, knuckleheads, get in a room, sit down, figure it out, do your jobs. Because everyone kind of doing we'll do, it's like everyone's in a canoe and they're all rowing in different directions. And it's like, oh, the canoe's just spinning. Like, what's going on? Why is this not working? Like, you gotta work together, guys. Like, come on. So yeah. It's I think hopefully some lessons have been learned from the last week or two, but that's asking a lot of people in the year 2020. So, we'll see.
I'm imagining like all of the commissioners on a bus, discussing stuff, and then you just have Kevin Warren saying, "I am in danger," like Ralph Wiggum. It's
banana.
What kind of input will he have? Hopefully, through so much of this, it's like Gene Smith would have to recuse himself with the college football playoffs. Ohio State didn't have a president in some of these meetings, and it's like, well, hopefully the Big Ten and Ryan Day and Ohio State have some sort of voice while all of this is going down. Because if the Big Ten is like, yeah, we like Jeff Brohm's idea better, and now the guys who might potentially come back to play a January, February schedule are like, sorry, coach, we can't do March, April, May, or April, May, June. Like, we've got to get ready for the NFL. And he's like, yeah, totally, I understand. Like, at some point, doesn't Ohio State have to be like, we are Ohio State? This is shouldn't they pull the Texas card at some point? And just, I'm not saying like leave or do anything, just like carry more weight than Rutgers, carry more weight than Indiana, carry more weight than Purdue.
I think there might actually be a reason to think that if it is all 5 conferences working together, they're going to want an earlier schedule, because you're going to want, if you are a college football commissioner, you're going to want the most attractive, entertaining product that you can possibly have. That product involves Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence and a million other guys who will not be playing if the season starts in mid-March. So they probably have to get some buy-in from the NFL as well about sliding the combine back and the draft back and all that stuff. But that's all potentially doable if they can do it. I think if you have 5 conferences working together, you're more likely to get that earlier schedule than you would be if it's just the Big Ten. Because I think the Big Ten, for better or for worse, has always been based extremely to the extreme on equality and equity. And, we're all the same here. Everyone's vote counts the same. Texas's history in the Big 12 has led to a lot of issues. Nebraska is in the Big Ten largely because Texas is, Texas gets somewhere around 2.5 votes in the Big 12. I mean, that is part of the reason Nebraska is in the Big Ten right now. But at some point, yes, you would sure like to see Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State, if they're all on the same side here, and Iowa and Wisconsin or whoever else, if they want to play and they want to do it, like, look, I'm sorry, Rutgers, I see you over there at the kids' table, but if you can't play this season, that's okay. If Rutgers and Maryland can't play a spring season, that's fine. You don't have to have Rutgers and Maryland play. And if, pick a school in the West. If Illinois can't do it either, that's fine too. This is not just the new kids. This is, if you can't do it, if you cannot financially make it work, that's okay. That's fine. We don't have to. You don't have to play the spring season. You can just wait till the fall. And I don't know how that fits with the Big Ten's all for one and one for all model, which has worked great in some ways, but also it has worked great in largely not having intra-conference strife and making a lot of money, but also it has resulted in some kind of crappy decisions probably that have cost the conference championships and results on the field. And we've talked about the scheduling and the way they do the scheduling versus the way the SEC does the scheduling a bunch of times this year. So that's one more example of that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this all goes. But yeah, in general, the more non-Big Ten people are involved in this decision, the better it probably is for Ohio State.
Yeah, I agree. And interestingly, with the Big 12, Texas has their own vote. They've got Nebraska's vote, Colorado's vote, Texas A&M's vote, Missouri's vote. So, they are able to wield this thing by just claiming everybody else's vote who has left, and that's that helps with their power. The NFL, Albert Breer wrote on Thursday about the NFL's willingness to push the draft back and get this Ryan Day's winter plan in. Because remember, they haven't seen anybody since 2019. They don't want to draft people in May or June of 2021, having not seen any of them in 2020. So they are in a position of wanting to help schools out, whether it be, here's our stadium, here's this, here's that. And he even said the NFL has talked about moving the combine to like May and the draft to June to help out, because it would hurt the NFL to not have all of these guys scouted. It's also more incentive for guys like Justin Fields to stay at Ohio State this year. Does it make it likely? That's not right. That's not what I'm saying. I say more likely than it would if you were starting the season in March or April or whatever. I don't think is it unlikely? Sure, maybe still unlikely. But to say it wouldn't happen, I think there's incentive to keep guys and incentive for guys to stay. As Ryan Day said when we talked to him on Wednesday, there's no reason for guys to leave now and go to California or Florida or Arizona to train for the draft, because they have everything they need at Ohio State right now. They can use all of the facilities, and they have the coaches. So that's another reason why Ryan Day wants something in place soon, so that guys won't just be leaving and they have something to point to, and they can also then make their decision. Like, okay, Justin, here's what the Big Ten says we're going to do. First game is January 1st. Does that work for you? And I think that it could, because here's a guy who would still like to be the number one draft pick in the NFL. It would certainly give them reason to think about it. And with what Albert Breer, he sort of mapped out Ryan Day's idea of 8 games in the winter, starting at like January 1st would be the opening weekend. And he even has them playing Thursday and Friday, like in the second or third week, to counterbalance some Sunday and football. And then basically each week there's all the way through February is the 8 weeks, January through February, these are the 8 weeks. Big Ten title game March 6th, Rose Bowl the week after that, or your Final Four playoffs. And so he's like, this doesn't sound outrageous. The fact that the NFL is into it, but as you said, Tom, if the rest of the conferences start shutting down here soon, this becomes the most likely plan of attack moving forward, in my opinion. I'm not saying it's going to happen, because fall didn't happen, and like, just plans may not come to fruition, but I would think this would be the most logical, most likely, because you've got coaches backing it in college, and you've got NFL teams backing it, and with enough just support, then I would think that would be the way they would go. Of course, figuring out that they would solve all of the other issues that stop them from playing now.
Right. And it's going to involve a lot of actual work on the back end and people actually having to do it this time, which would be an exciting change and exciting change of pace of how things have gone
Never
so far.
mind.
Oh, sorry. Did I just ruin it? Sorry.
Dang it.
Yeah, you're gonna have to do something. Sorry, that's probably unfair of me. Yeah, no, it's something that this is not by any means a guarantee to happen, but this is a very solid plan B or plan C or plan D or whatever plan we're on at this point. Especially if those other three conferences don't play this fall, like this is a very solid fallback position. Okay, can't play in the fall. Okay, let's try this. I mean, you got the NFL involved, like you said. You potentially can sell this to the players who are going to be turning pro at the end of the year as Justin Fields, get another year on film, get and there has been a correlation between number of snaps taken as a college quarterback and how well you do in the pros. It's not perfect correlation, but if all things being equal, the more experience you have in college, the better you generally do in the pros. So there's an advantage to doing that. The other thing is, if you're going to have a season like this, you can keep guys on campus. There's no reason for people to leave because Justin Fields, if Justin Fields wanted to walk out the door tomorrow and start training for an agent and having an agent pay for his training, that would be something that could happen. There are probably a few guys on Ohio State's team that could have that happen tomorrow if they really wanted to. Where you have issues is the guys who are like the third round picks, the fourth round picks. Is an agent going to make enough money? Is an agent going to view themselves as making enough money off of an Ohio State linebacker who's projected to go in the fourth round to legitimize paying living expenses and for training and that kind of stuff and fronting the money for that for the next, 9 months? Like, probably not. You're going to have a lot of guys who, even if they're in the draft, are definitely going to be better off training at Ohio State this fall, potentially playing at Ohio State next spring. So, there are no guarantees in anything, but man, I got to tell you, just in terms of pure narrative, the clock strikes midnight on December 31st, 2020. 2020, now it's a new year, and college football is starting today, and it's New Year's Day, and oh my goodness, can you imagine what the level of excitement around the sport to get to watch college football? The very clean, nice narrative. Hey, it's a new year. I mean, that would be. I mean, it was like when Major League Baseball was talking about starting on the 4th of July. Now, of course, Major League Baseball screwed that up because it also is run by idiots. But if you could somehow make this happen, this becomes something that, I mean, New Year's Day is already a national holiday, but like it would be like a triple national holiday if it's 2020 is over and college football is back. And and maybe this really is the moment of inflection where things have really turned and are starting to get better.
It would just be kind of a rebirth, a renewal of some, and maybe that's what everybody needs right now. I think everybody's looking forward to turning the calendar, and if you could turn it and then here's football, great. We'll see as we go on how realistic this looks as we get some feedback from the Big Ten, which I'm sure, feedback from the Big Ten, I imagine, is just actual feedback. It's just the noise. It's like you open up an email, a reply email. It's like it's the noise, and you're like, come on,
is this written in crayon? Now, just because we're still in 2020, can I be the wet blanket on the January 1st thing now that I've gotten everyone excited about it?
Go ahead.
So, what happens roughly a week before January 1st? Christmas. Guess what people generally spend Christmas? Home. So are college football players going to be quarantining on campus for, basically the entire month of December and not going home and not, or is there just going to be an acceptance of, yes, everyone's going to go home for Christmas and some people are going to get sick. And then when we test them when they come back, even if it is a quick result of the test, that, if they test positive, they're going to have to sit out the first 2 games. So there's a potential complication for you, but, I'm sure college football's leadership is well on their way to sorting that one out.
Can't the families of every player just be put into pods, find housing for them like they do in the SEC, give them a couple nice houses. Sometimes they do that in the Pac-12. They're doing it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can just call them pods rather than like financial enticements, So they're already doing it.
In the MAC and the other group of five, it's literally pods, like those portable storage things. Like, we can't afford the nice houses, so close the garage door. Were you born in a barn? Come on.
So are those pods like in the driveway of the boosters, or like are they just strewn along a highway?
Just stacked up next to the stadiums. Look at the view from up here. 5 pods high. The quarterback's family gets the highest pod, yes. See? Why are we not in charge? We're solving everyone's problems right now. Yep. Come on. Yeah. We're just giving this stuff away for free. Crazy.
Maybe in 2021 we will finally be in charge. You got anything else that you want to talk about, or you got any other people that you want to throw under the bus and call them cheaters?
No, I think I think we've probably done enough damage for today. We'll got everyone's hopes up, and then pop that balloon for you. Yeah. Well, this is the good news is this is probably only like the 437th most disappointing thing that has happened to people this year. So it's fine. Fine. We're way down the list. It's all right.
You got that right, Chief. All right, let's go ahead and wrap it up. Let's call it a show. Thank you all for listening. I would apologize to some of you for the last few minutes, but you knew better. You know what you're getting here. Check out BuckeyeScoop.com, where there is going to be plenty of content. Even if there is no football, there is still recruiting. There is still stuff to talk about. And with Ohio State, there's always something going on regardless. So we'll have all of that for you. Still very well worth the investment. Believe me, it's been pretty busy over there, and it continues to be on the Ask the Insiders message board as well. Tom, how's the morning scoop going?
The morning scoop is going great. This has been I have picked one heck of a year to be a daily morning show host. This has been a year when we've had a lot of stuff changing. Got to recorded a great episode with our buddy Bill Bender from the Sporting News on Wednesday afternoon about the plausibility of a fall season, and then got it done really early. Stopped recording. Got it all posted, scheduled. I'm like, wow, I've never done this early. This is awesome. And then open up Twitter, and hey, guess what? Gene Smith dropped a statement. Well, hey, Bill, want to do that again? And we did. So that was great. It was good. But no, that's there has not been a shortage of stuff to talk about this year. That's the good news. So so that's Morning Scoop is Monday through Friday at you can find that on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, all those good places. And as with this show and that show, leave us a 5-star rating and review. That helps us reach a growing audience, and doesn't take that long on your part. So, but we definitely appreciate everything you do, because you know what we do every show, Tony. We try.
And we have tried on this show as well. So, thank you all for listening. Go out there and try yourself. See how that works out for you. And if you fail, at least you tried. So have a good one. We'll talk to you guys later.